would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. So we have the building inspector here for 5:35. Do you want to start a little early, Chris? Whenever you're ready. You don't have anything for us, right, Chris?
Oh, I have hope.
Well, nothing that would fit in 5 minutes.
But I will cede the floor to our building inspector.
Okay. Come on up, Rick.
Want me over here?
Yep. Right to the microphone, please.
The reason Mr. Briggs is here tonight is I believe at your last meeting there were some concerns regarding electrical permits, I believe it was. So I asked him to come here because I wouldn't be able to answer any questions regarding it. And he, being the person who supervises the electrical inspectors, would be able to give you better answers than I could.
So Greg, my biggest, one of my concerns is that when people are applying for permits, that they're getting a response in a timely manner. But not just that, in accordance with the law, they're receiving back their permits within the time that's allotted. And some of the complaints that I've gotten is that people have not. So I think it's important, whether it's building department, electrical, plumbing, gas, whatever it may be, is that we ensure that when people are applying for permits, that it's being acknowledged that they've applied for a permit, and that we do our due process and make sure that it's acted on in again, in a timely manner, but most important, by the standard and by the law that's set, that we are giving people back that permit so they can perform their job, what they're trying to do. So.
Okay, so I've addressed this with the electrical inspectors. The procedure that I was given when I started working here was somebody files an application. I fill out a permit card for it. It goes into the box. How often, at that point, I scan the application and send it to the inspectors. Usually this is done within a 24-hour period of receiving. The paper application in itself and the permit could stand in the box for any, let's say, a week or two. But the inspector has the permit application, and fully a third of the time the application comes in, the work has already been done. The electricians are allowed 5 days from completing the work to applying for the application. And so I would assume quite often there's an inspection that might even be done before the paper permit that's in the tray is actually signed off on. And so the electrical inspectors have gone back through Chapter 8. And it does clearly say that the permit is issued to the person applying it, but nowhere does it state that it has to be sent back to the person who applied for it.
Okay, so my question is, how does the person know it was issued? Where's the notification, and where's the proof for that person?
Well, I guess when they call up, and actually both Bruce and Art had said that on rare occasions, somebody will call up for an inspection, and they have never even applied for the permit. So it goes back to what you're saying. But this is a quote from Art or Shane. In my 40-plus years as an electrical contractor, both union and non-union, I have never received a verification that my application for a permit has been granted. It just isn't the procedure. Apparently, there might be a town or two in the area where they do in fact send you a receipt of having given them the application with the fee, so you have a record of your fee history. But as far as they tell me, the process that the town follows is pretty much the process that goes in the state. Now, I pulled 2 permits last year in Amherst, both of them involving electricians. My electricians filed permits. They never received it. Notice, they call the inspector when the time comes to have the inspection. The inspector goes out there and does the inspection. Now, in thinking about it, I think probably less than a half a dozen times in the 4 years I've been here, a company, usually an out-of-town company, has called up and requested that I send them a copy of the application, not the little card itself, but the application, so that they can go back to whoever's paying them, which is probably even further out of town, to justify that the work has been done. I'm going with the procedure that was handed to me. I've never had anybody complain. I believe Mr. Razaza had called up and asked about his 3 applications. But that's the only time I've heard of anything.
So my concern is not that the procedure that we're using, as long as we're following the law behind how it's supposed to be being done.
And
So that's
what my inspectors tell me, we're doing largely what all the rest of the towns in the area do, and that's, I mean,
no disrespect, but I don't care what other towns are doing. I want to make sure that we're protecting this town. And I guess to me, my point is that if I'm an electrical contractor and I fill out my application and I send it in and I just start to work and that application sat in a box for 2 weeks, technically I'm working without a permit.
I think it's a gray area, because what I'm being told is that you can apply for the permit up to 5 days after you've completed the work. I'm not an electrician.
Nor am I.
I'm going on what, the electricians, my inspectors tell me, what I've seen and witnessed as a contractor in other towns. And so, again, I go back to what Bruce has written. Nowhere does it state that the permit has to be sent back to the person who applied for it, and nowhere does it state that there's a time limit on how long it takes the inspector to approve or disapprove an electrical application. Now, we keep the applications and permit cards.
Did he send you a copy of what that says in
That
Massachusetts?
question.
Actually, I believe I have some here. His section 3L said notice shall be given by mailing or delivering the permit prepared by the board to said inspector. It doesn't say that it has to go back to the person or company making the application.
Right. You mentioned that it's section 3 out of what?
I'm assuming of the electrical code, because there's no title on any of this, but here's Rule 8.
Can you read that again, Greg?
Sure, this is 3L. Said notice shall be given by mailing or delivering a permit application form prepared by the board to said inspector.
Who's the board?
I'm assuming it's the electrical rules board. There's one standard form in the state. It's got to be performed, it's got to be prepared by some board of electrical inspectors. I don't know. I mean,
Go on, who was it a homeowner complaining to you or an electrician himself? Or a contractor?
It was both,
Both?
a homeowner and a contractor, because it came down to whether the permit was issued or not.
Yeah, they did know, obviously.
Yeah.
right, so how would a homeowner even know? I mean, both of the permits I pulled last year were for work in my own house. And to tell you the truth, I've asked this question before. How do I know? I hire an electrician. He's a standard electrician. He's got a truck with his name on the side of the truck. Comes, he does the work. You pull the permit? Yeah, pull the permit. I never see the permit as the homeowner, ever. The contractor apparently doesn't either.
Well, it goes back to what you're saying, so that, I'm the homeowner, had some electrical work done. I said, well, was a permit pulled? Yes. Okay. Who inspected it? How do I know the job signed off on? 5 years down the road, I go to sell my house, what's all this work done? Oh, electrical company, that was approved. We don't have that anywhere.
Sure, I agree with you entirely.
So that's, so who, protecting the homeowner or protecting the person that's,
I hear you. I hear you. In fact, I built a garage at my house, did the wiring, called the electrical inspector out to do the inspection. He came out, he said, I can't inspect the wiring in your garage because you never had the final on your house done. I said, you know what? I know the electrician that did the work in my house. He called for you to come out 3 times. You didn't do it. If the electrical inspector doesn't show up in 72 hours, if the work is considered done, right? When I told the building inspector that, when she followed up on the electrical inspector, she went back and made him come to my house and do an inspection that was supposed to have been performed 4 years earlier. Now, in Massachusetts, part of it's zoning and part of it's building, but after 6 or 10 years, any work that's been done is legitimate, even if it's never been permitted. So if it's never been inspected, it falls under that rule too, and it just gets grandfathered. I'm dealing with it a couple places in town right now.
so like I said, my concern is that, again, we're just following what the rule is, as you dictated, is read, and what the law says in regards to that. So if we're following that, and we're not liable by any way, shape, or form, fine. But again, there's also part of it that goes into good practice.
Yes.
And, and then just because other towns don't do certain things doesn't mean Granby needs to be that way as well. If there's a certain practice we can improve on, I'd like for us to do that.
Sure. I mean,
Are you okay with the way it's going now? It kind of seems like it's
I've had no
not
issue.
kosher.
I've
Yeah.
had no issue. And like I said, there's been a rare occasion when an out-of-town contractor has needed to justify his work to a third party who's paying him. So he calls for a copy of the application, never saying, I never got my permit. He just says, I need a copy of this permit for the work done here so I can justify my costs. And so this is rule number 8 out of Massachusetts Electrical Code. Permit application shall provide notice of installation of the wiring. The application shall be filed on the prescribed form. After the permit application has been accepted, an electrical permit shall be issued to the person. It doesn't say mailed to the person, it shall be issued to the person.
The person drawing the permit.
The person drawing the permit. This entity shall be responsible for the notification of the completion of work as required in MGL 143, Section 3L. It doesn't say, and this is what Bruce has pointed out, it doesn't say that they have to get a permit in the mail, recognizing the fact that they've applied, and it doesn't say how long that they have for approval or disapproval. And what I was going to say before is that we keep the application and the completed permit form, and I give it a time period where they sit in mass after they've been signed off. But those all end up in the hard files for each property, and that's the only thing that's worth anything there is the application itself, because it details what work is going to go on the property. All the permit indicates is that the electrical inspector has looked at it and approved the work.
Well, that's not all, that's an important part of it.
Well, it certainly is, but I don't keep that as part of the permanent record, right? If somebody applies, we issue a permit, the work gets inspected, it comes back in, right? I correlate that with the inspection costs that the electrical inspectors give me. I pull those permits. At the end of the year, the green card comes off because it doesn't really say anything other than the fact that it's been approved. And that application detailing the work goes into the hide file on the board. And that's what I see going back I don't even know when it started, but as far back as the electrical applications are in the files, in GRANBY's files, well before 2000, into the 90s, into the 80s, it's about the same form.
So basically looking for the definition of what does the permit's been issued.
Issued, yeah.
What does that, you know,
I mean, that's semantics, but if I'm issued something, I generally get a piece,
notified that you've been issued
a
something?
piece of paper to say,
I'm sure that it's physically possible. It's going to entail quite a bit more work on everybody's part, and there hasn't been any complaint.
Well,
Is there a possibility to do a form letter or something, to say your permit was issued on this date? You know, to the electrician or the homeowner? I know.
The homeowner, 99% of the time, isn't the one applying for the permit.
Right.
you shouldn't be the person that's
But
applying.
let me ask you, so how much more work goes to if the electrical inspector and I issue a permit? Issued a permit, that must be actual permit I'm signing off on, that's to be issued, right?
Yeah.
How much more difficult is that to put it in the envelope and mail it off to the person who, or to the point, I know some towns do a lot of things over online now. You submit it and you get things back to them.
Maybe they could send it back electronically. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe that's part of the advantages of an electronic permitting system.
Yeah, well, this is the things I'm thinking of, so like I said, if we're saying it's issued, then how do I know, how does the electrician know that it was issued?
Does he call? Do they call? No.
Like I
No.
said, 30-40% of the time, the work's already been done before they even apply.
Yeah.
And they basically, they're only applying just to get the inspection, is that correct?
Sure. And it says right on their application, work is completed, please inspect.
Well, two things. Technically, they shouldn't be starting work without having the application approved and a permit
The law
issued.
says they can.
No, it
They're
doesn't.
they're allowed 5 days
Before,
before they even have to apply for the work.
so they can work without a permit?
Seems a little strange to me, but it happens all the time. I get applications in there, work has been completed, the letter was written last week, please come inspect. My inspectors say that they're given 5 days. I don't know the electrical code, I don't know the jurisprudence of it, all I know is what.
No, nor do I. As I said, it just seems kind of, you know, you can work for 5 days without even
Sure.
being issued a permit.
Right. What he's referencing when he talks about 3L is Mass General Law, Chapter 143, Section 3L.
Okay, doesn't say that on a piece of paper.
Well, you mentioned it when you were in passing.
I did actually, it said MGL.
And you even know it.
Okay, and that's where they talk about the permit and that you have to file within 5 days of commencing work. That's right in 3L, Section 3, okay? Just so you know, if you guys want to go look it up, or if you want out, I can print it out and send it to you.
It says 5 days before, or 5 days?
After.
After commencing,
Work,
so once
yeah.
you start
Yeah.
the work, you have 5 days to apply.
Interesting.
What I'm told is that in a large city, because there's in several of these pieces, there's reference to, in Boston, thou shalt not start work until the permit is applied for. I can only believe if you were going to start doing a shopping mall, you better have your permits in line before you start stacking boxes.
Only in Boston, no.
Well, it said Boston, Fall River, Lowell, Worcester. Didn't mention Springfield, as a matter of fact.
Don't forget about us at this point.
No, it's just very, very interesting. So I guess, like I said, to me, I'd like to see if we can enhance our permitting process where, you know, if there are a way, like I said, so if someone does fill out an application and the application is approved and a permit is issued, then why can't we just have that, a notification sent out, you know, even through email? Because most of the time, I would imagine that on an application nowadays, there's an email on it, email address.
There's supposed to be, there's not any.
Well, there's got to be an address for the business, I would hope.
I would hope.
So, I mean, like I said, so it's not, two things, you can notify if there's an email, a notification we sent that your application has been approved, permit's been issued, or if there's no, if not, we can put that in an envelope and send it on its way.
Yeah.
I don't think it takes much effort to put it in an envelope, to be honest with you, and address the envelope.
Is there any reason, Greg, that a permit wouldn't be issued once the application was sent in?
An electrical permit?
Yeah.
No.
So maybe that's why, if there's no the application really is the,
The
It's assumed that if
application
you-
is basically the act, as far as I'm aware.
I wonder.
It's the same thing with, I only do gas, I don't do plumbing, right? It's the same thing with the gas permits. I fill out somebody sends an application, I fill out a permit card, it sits in I scan that and send it to the inspector. At that point, it gets put up in the file. At some point, the gas inspector walks in, takes down the files, yeah, he's got all of these are in order, and he fills them out. Now, in both of these, more with gas, because it happens a lot more often with gas than electric, there's something that's out of accord. So the the gas inspector has to notify the company that they needed to forward another inspection, re-inspection fee, because work wasn't done to the point where they could approve the work, not approve the permit, but approve
Yep.
the work. And so they, no, there's no signing off on this job until you submit another reapplication or re-inspection fee. But that happens much more often. More often with gas, I wouldn't say much more often, but more often with gas, and I'm assuming plumbing, than with electrical. Yeah, I had probably less than a half a dozen re-inspection fees last year for gas and only 2 or 3 for electrical. So the number of re-inspections is really small. There's actually quite a good group of tradesmen in the area. They don't falter much. I mean, most of our, I would say that 2/3 or better of our gas inspection or permits are sent to 2 or 3 companies, FSI and say Hurley and David or somebody like that. The rest of them go to small one-man shops. Electrical work is much more 1- and 2-man crews, but there's not much call for re-inspection. And I'm never called on, has my application been approved? Whereas for building, more often, somebody will say, is my permit in yet? Yeah, because there's much more review of a house permit. And I'm doing a letter now to somebody that sent me plans for a garage they want to build. It's like, yeah, you need to provide me with this information, this information, this information,
Yep.
this information. But that's not the case with electrical permits or gas permits.
So what would the penalty be, if there is a penalty, if they were to call for an inspection to find out that no permit was ever pulled? What would the penalty be?
Well, we talked about that today. If somebody calls you for an electrical inspection and there's no permit, it's like you have to take it as they just they forgot to file a permit. Who would call for an inspection knowing that they hadn't filed a permit? And I'm under the impression that there's a certain amount of electrical work and probably plumbing work done too, where there's no permits issued. Right? It's not as obvious as building. I mean, somebody's building a house.
It's pretty
It's not too often you get a call for inspection if you didn't file for a permit.
Well, you could mistakenly.
Right,
Yeah.
if you thought you had and you didn't, you
You
called
write
for an
30 permits a
inspection.
week. Right?
All right.
Okay, I missed that one.
Yeah.
And so with electrical and gas, I believe there's no penalty if you don't make the 5 days that we were talking about.
Okay, so it's not like they'd have a monetary fine or
Now,
anything?
whereas with building, if you do work without a permit, or if you even start work without a permit in some towns, it's a doubling of the fee. Now, in Granby, I'd probably get strung out on a branch if I did that. So somebody's doing work without a permit, this is your opportunity to go get a permit now. And 98% of the time, people come down and get a permit.
Okay.
I can start processing the permits as they come in, but like I said, the work may be done and inspected, and a week later, the guy signs off on the permit card because he already has the application electronically. At that point, I can take the card and send it out to somebody, but I'd only be able to do that actually, because I don't know which work has been inspected, which hasn't until their fee, until they're charging me for their time. They get so much per inspection.
So I'm just wondering that a contractor, maybe they don't, I don't know, maybe they would want a copy of their permit for their files, that they have proof a permit was issued.
Sure.
If they're ever called back on it, yeah, well, yes, I did, I had a permit on that.
Yeah, like I said, on occasion, I have been called by an out-of-state contractor because they've needed to provide justification. Whereas, you know, we do a lot of insulation inspections in town, the Mass Save program. Those folks send me an envelope with their application so that I automatically send them a copy of their permit, because they need to provide that permit to the third party that's paying.
Be paid, yeah.
Right? And so, most all insulation contractors now send me an envelope. So I send them a copy of the application.
Yeah.
That
I just guess if I was a contractor, I'd want a proof that that it was approved for me to do the work that I did.
Well, there's the inspection, and then there's the canceled check. I don't know, I'd have to go through and actually see. Chris, has anybody ever done the numbers on how many electrical permits come in? They pay their fee, it goes through, it's never inspected. There's a certain amount of that. I can see it going through my
So we don't send out any permits or nothing, they just,
electrical, no, gas, no, plumbing,
no.
Just building, really?
just building.
So it's issued, but where do they go after they're issued? Do they sit in a drawer somewhere? I'll be facetious, I'm just wondering, is
They
that
go on the
file?
They
They
went
go
file
to
with
the
the
RP.
property.
He has a folder on every address in town, and any permit that is taken out and issued is thrown inside that folder. Okay, so from the time it's built till the current time, you should have a record of any permits that are issued for that site.
And there's a time frame, so I submit an application for a permit today. You received it. Is there a time frame for a turnaround by the,
There's nothing in the code is what it
Nothing.
says here, that there's
Okay.
no timeframe for approval or disapproval.
okay,
And so, based on the fact that, let's say 40% of electrical permits never call for inspection. They pay their fee, they're being above board, they pay their fee, but they never call for an inspection. That too gets put in the file, and at the end of the year, the electrical inspector has signed that form. I pull the form off, I don't know actually whether it's been inspected or not, and I file that in the hard copy, saying that somebody applied for this work. One would assume that if they're paying the fee for the permit, they're going to do the work, although that isn't necessarily always the case.
so there's no responsibility on the inspector, so I filled out an application, the application was
Don't they have
approved.
to sign off on the general permit, the building permit?
Yes, they,
Inspector's
on the
gonna sign
card
off
that I
on that?
send out, if it's a combined permit, there'll be the electrical inspector. the
But that's
plumbing
if construction work's going
Right,
on.
if somebody's doing the new furnace, they'll send in, I'll get two applications, I'll get one for gas, I'll get one for electric. I'll fill them both out, send one to Fred Marion, send one to Bruce Pelletier, for instance. They get the work. If they get a call, they go out and do the inspection, and I get a charge for it. If not, the permit is still filed.
Yep.
The permit has still been issued, but there's no continuity to whether there was any inspection.
So, back to my question. If I'm the electrician, I file for a permit. As far as I know, it's been approved. I didn't get any notification that it was approved or just, they're not approved.
So not approved.
All right. Where's the follow-up that the inspection was never done? Is that the responsibility of the inspector to make sure inspection was done?
If he's not called, he doesn't go do the inspection.
So at what point that application is closed, the application just stays open? At what point did that inspector go back and say, All right, well, what was happening here? Did work ever get done? I mean, is there any checks and balances?
Well, in fact, it's my understanding from one of the legal courses I had to take for the commissioners, I have files for people that filed for building permits, for instance. They never call for an inspection. Like these insulation inspection or installations.
Yep.
At the end of 2 years, I pull that file, I just take the permit application and file that because there's no return of the green card, right? It's a matter of, I don't remember whether it's the 4th Amendment or the 14th Amendment of privacy rights, that I can't call those people and say, did you get that work done? That's not the way it happens.
Well, I meant calling the person who, the application who applied for the permit.
I guess it amounts to the same thing, right? If somebody applies for an electrical permit, it goes in, the electrical inspector signs it, it gets put in one file. If they go do that inspection, they're gonna put it down on their charge, and I'm gonna get charged $35 or $70 or whatever their fee is for that particular type of inspection. One has to assume that they're doing that inspection. That doesn't get differentiated from the applications. The applications, I guess, based on the assumption that the work is getting done, whether or not it was inspected or not, is going to go into the hard file. It's a fairly archaic system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I always think as the inspector is the person that's protecting the homeowner or the person that's purchasing that services.
That's, yes.
That's what I would expect.
That's
Yeah.
the ideology of it. That's the spoken word of it.
But it doesn't seem to be the case, though,
No. I mean,
which is interesting.
sure. I mean, both our electrical inspectors, all three of our electrical inspectors are fairly, they're not poor people, right? But they would jump at the jet.
Yeah.
Okay, you got your air conditioner installed, you pulled an
Yeah.
electrical permit to have an air conditioner installed in your window, I'll come do that. I'll look at that air conditioner and check it out for $35, I'll drive around all day.
Yeah. But you just got done saying there's a certain percentage that never get inspected.
Never get inspected, or the inspection comes in and it's already been done when they file for the application. I don't know how much different it is in a town where it's all electronic. I would assume that it's just consolidated. And a lot of this just gets sorted out. I mean, I call and get verification that property taxes are current before I release the permit. Now, under an electronic permitting system, nobody ever touches that. When the guy starts inputting the data, it automatically, electronically checks with the assessor's office whether the taxes are current or not. And if they're not current, far enough back that it meets the state requirement, then the light comes up and it's no, you don't get a permit. And it's not
Is
2
the
days.
letter generated?
Good reason for us to get into the 20th
That's
century.
Or the person applying?
I would assume
Not
at that
even
point they would
21st,
call the
just the 20th.
contractor and
That's
tell them that they
some of the
didn't.
point I'm making.
Right. But that's really, I mean, I don't think there's been half a dozen or 10 times
Yeah.
in 4 years in filing for a building permit that property taxes were not current or not current enough. They have to go back, I think it's approaching a year in arrears before you're not supposed to issue the permit.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate it, and just so people
It's a
know,
learning experience for me.
this was nothing really to do with our, yourself, our electrical inspectors, our plumbing inspectors, and so on and so forth. I wanted to educate myself on the process just based on some of the information that I was received. And then looking at it, again, is there a way that we can do better as a town with our permitting process? You know, that's what I really wanted to look at, is it, and, you know, a piece where there's checks and balances, and also can we enhance the process for, as I call them, the customer. So,
I guess, I mean, you asked about mailing the permit back out to a client. I guess that's physically possible to do. I just don't see what would be gained if there were people that were in need of these permits or had any question about the permits. They'd be calling, and the number of calls I get is little to none. You're just making an assumption that they're filing and it's go.
It was issued, yeah.
I don't like assumptions.
You know what they say about them.
Yeah,
I'd rather have a system in place that works, and there's checks and balances with that system. So we know, like I said, we know that we sent out a permit to Johnny Jones for performing such work. So. All right. Well, again, thank you, appreciate it, and got some reading to do.
Hello, Mr. Edwards, how are you?
Good evening.
Come join us. Thank you. All right, so I looked at this, and let me tell you, it's Greek.
Of course it is.
So I hope you have the forest cutting plan for dummies version.
All right, forest cutting plan for dummies version, that's fair enough. The first page tries to give you, the first two pages tries to give you some sense of what long-term and short-term harvesting is. You're clearly doing the long-term. The long-term goal here is to maintain a park and maintain a forest cover on that park. You have dead timber, and as we know, it's not going to come back to life, it's not going to get any better, so if we can harvest it and get some income out of it, that was the goal. And so the first page of the cutting plan is basically, the location, moving over to the right is the ownership, clearly it's the town. It's in chapter 61, so it's in stewardship, so those were checked off. Moving down, there are no stream crossings. There are no wetland crossings. There are no filter strips because there are no stream crossings. If you move over to the right, the licensed timber harvester is to be announced, really. That should have probably said TBA there, because we don't know who's going to harvest it. And there are no harvesting of wetlands. So that just left blank. If you move to page 2, what that does is it tells you the products to be harvested, and it's based on species. And for instance, under white pine, the first column on the left is MBF/cords is measurement. MBF means 1,000 board feet. So there are actually 36,000 board feet of white pine to be harvested. And, hemlock is 5 and so on, for a total of about 229,000 board feet. A typical triaxle truck driving down the road today has about 5,000 board feet on it. So just in white pine alone, you've got about 7 truckloads.
That's a lot.
There's a lot of wood coming out there.
Holy cow.
So just to give you some order of magnitude, that's one truckload is 4,000 to 5,000 feet. If it's a straight, tractor trailer truck, it'd be about 6,000, maybe a little more, depending on how they actually, the size of the logs, because if they're 12-foot logs, you can put 3 tiers of 12-foot logs and still be legal. They're all stacked up. That's quite a bit of wood. But if they're 14s and 16s, they stack differently, and so you can't get 3 tiers. So if you move over to the right, cutting standards. I skipped stand 1 because there's 2 stands we're operating in are stands 2 and 3, so I just left that blank. But basically, the forest type is it's a white pine hardwood type. It's about 9 acres. Again, the landowner objective is long-term. And the trees to be cut is CT, which means the cut trees are marked, is what that really means. The type of cutting is a clear cut. That's what CC stands for, and the source of regeneration is AD, which is advanced regeneration. Regeneration is already there. White pine trees are 4 to 12 feet high, fully occupying the stand. If you walk through there and you try to ignore what's above you and look out at your own horizon, you see a sea of white pine, especially with the leaves off right now. So it's already there. You just really need to release it. Again, moving down an owner signature, it's a long-term harvest, and I need a signature whenever you're comfortable in order to submit the plan. Have to have an original signature. Every tree that's going to be cut has been marked. Wherever you see paint, that tree's going to go. If you look at the map, which I believe you have, and you sort of, it's the southern, southeastern portion of the property. If you're in the park and you walk from the parking lot on Kendall Street, and you just walk right up the slope at almost the closest trail that brings you there, you walk up through the Frisbee Park, and you take a left on the main trail that's there, and follow that. Nothing's marked until you get out of the hemlock that's there, and then it's going to be heavily marked from there. So I focused my attention on the dead and dying wood up at the top of that peak there, or the southern peak of the property. I avoided hemlock. I felt once I got in there and started marking, I realized you have a hemlock problem, but you have really a bigger problem with the dead oak. So I thought, in order to get your feet wet here, I thought it made more sense to just keep it simple. Dead oak, almost dead oak, the clear cut that's going on up there. It's just a good stewardship project, I think.
So we would have to deal with the hemlock at a later date?
Yeah, I think that you should be thinking, let's do this first and see how you feel. And then we can move to the hemlock after that. So I thought it made more sense to take baby steps. I could go out and mark the hemlock, and we could just do this later in the year or whatever, but this is a good way to start, I think. Last page is just a locus map that gives the state a sense. It's required. It gives the state a sense of where we are in the landscape. There's a couple of pages in here that are blank. Because we don't have an enormous amount of stream crossings, we don't need an SC5 and SC6, and so we're not crossing wetlands, so we don't need a WC5, 6, and 7, and so forth. Filter strips, same thing, and wetland harvests. I mean, some harvests are very complicated, including multiple stream crossings and multiple wetland harvests and so on. But this is a fairly straightforward process. I'm thinking that if it were my land, I would suggest we do it in the winter. The park, in my experience being out there, is fairly unoccupied. I mean, there's a lot of dog walkers. But other than that, it's pretty quiet out there this time of year. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, the park is supposed to be quote-unquote closed, but it would have a minimal impact. I think if we use the park, if you look at the map, I have proposed what's called a landing right at, you can see the X right off of Kendall Street, where the parking area is. There's an X there's a circle with an X in it. And you can see sort of a dashed line that leads down to it. The whole idea is to pull all that wood with a machine all the way down to that location, and then we can put it on trucks and drive it away. In order to do that, I think that portion of the park should probably be closed. But that's just my recommendation. I don't think you want to, the commingling of people and curiosity, and there's a certain liability that comes with harvesting, and if you could minimize it, I would think it'd be wise. Use that little bit of parking lot there as close as we can get to the edge of Kendall Street. It'd be my recommendation. So the rest of the area is open for people, but we just kind of take over a footprint about the size of a football field that is just for logging, just for trucks to come and go, just for machines to move material around, and that sort of thing.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
The turning radius out of the park on the Kendall,
Yes.
will Triaxle be able to do it?
I think so.
Larger?
I think so. They might roll over the edge a little bit on the way out and so on the way in, but I think it's wide enough.
Okay.
I'll take another look at that to be sure, but I'm pretty sure it's wide enough.
I know I've asked this before, and I apologize because I don't remember what you answered. What kind of remediation are we going to need in that trail area once this is done? Because it's gonna cause some.
Good question. If you look at the map again and look at where the trails are, My proposal is to stay off the trails completely. And we're only going to cross one trail, or possibly two trails, I should be clear. Two trails. One, you can see the stone wall at the very southerly portion of the property with a 90-degree angle where my dark line sort of goes right to the edge of the ownership. There's a trail there that I'll cross, but I'll cross it at a 90-degree angle. They will cross at a 90-degree angle there. And then further on, further north, there's another area where we'll have to cross the trail. But again, at 90-degree angles, and we'll stay off the trails.
Okay.
After they're done, I'd like to write into the agreement with whomever you decided to harvest this, that, extra repair to be done or some sort of mitigation on the trails, because I don't want the trails to be.
We don't want them damaged, yeah.
We're gonna make our own trail,
Okay.
all the way down to the landing, staying off the trails, because for just the reasons you're worried about. You break it, you own it. And so it's best to make our own trail. In fact, there'll probably be a nice trail created by these machines, a new trail.
The landing's down by the parking lot. Right?
Exactly.
Everything.
The landing is in the field just before the
The
parking
Charter
lot.
Day parking
That's what I'm
spot.
thinking.
Yep.
That's a good, hard, flat spot. It froze pretty hard this year. And I think it would freeze up and be hard as could be.
So January, February would be the
Yeah,
best.
frozen conditions. And that would be a requirement I would put into the bid documents.
That's even better. Less people out there.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
How many trucks you think would come out of there each day?
Well, there's 250,000 feet coming out. It would probably be one company. It wouldn't be a cadre of
Right.
people coming
Yeah.
and going.
Okay.
So, I can't do the quick math, but it's probably
45,
thank
46
you,
trucks.
yeah. It's a lot of trucks.
Completely?
On some
Well, he's
days,
saying 5,000
5,000
Yeah.
per truck.
feet.
Yeah.
You're talking 45, 46 trucks.
yep. On some days it'd be 2 or 3 trucks in a day. Some
Yeah.
days it'd be none.
I'm concerned
Truck.
with if it would do any damage to the road. As Chris mentioned, the triaxle coming out of there, that's a tight turn. I mean, them going over cutting the corner, going over the road or something, it's a lot of weight on those trucks turning and stuff like that, if that would, eventually do damage to the road, something for us to consider.
Well, that's one of the other reasons I think frozen is the best way.
Yeah.
When the ground's frozen, the edges of the roads are much more forgiving.
But as we saw this year, you get those warm days, and now
Yeah.
that's, doesn't take much for a 70,000 pound truck to load it, just to tear up something up.
Yeah.
That's just my concern.
Well, I mean, we can write some language that talks about the edge on Kendall Street. I certainly get a performance bond anyway. That's just, I wouldn't do this any other way.
Yeah.
I mean, we could, is that an asphalt?
Yes.
Yes.
The road is asphalt, but is the driveway asphalt?
No.
No, it's
Then maybe
dirt.
what we could do is require them to put a stone mat there. A
Okay.
stone, in other words, put in 6-inch stone
Yep.
right there. I do approaches like that, new approaches anyway.
Yes.
Well, it's a problem if it's asphalt, obviously, but if it's not asphalt,
No, it's dirt.
we'll just put in we'll require a stone approach, that's all. You can write that right in the documents.
That's good with that, that's smart.
I'm still concerned with as the truck comes out and it makes that turn,
Yeah.
as the tractor's making that turn, it's gonna be,
Chris,
all
when was
that
the
weight.
last time Kendall was paved?
You just did.
yeah,
That's what I thought. Was
Last couple
it
of
last
years.
2 years?
yeah, so it's not due for a long time, that's why I consider, I wanna make sure we're not damaging that
Another
road.
18 years.
Well, the edges are the weakest part coming on and off.
Yep.
And if we stone it, that's That's typically what's required anyway.
Well, the question is, will we want to widen the driveway to give
A
a better
better turning.
angle of attack onto Kendall to avoid them
Well,
towards the edge?
I'd like to, if there's something that we can do ahead of time to, with doing this, that will prevent any future damage,
To mitigate
absolutely.
as much of it as we
The
can.
highway superintendent usually requires some sort of stone approach or a pad to take the mud off the tires
Yeah,
when I apply for a logging permit anyway. So this is pretty standard.
Yeah.
If you want it to be wide, we can put out some pins and tell them how far we want it to be wide and just require it.
yeah, to definitely have the input from our highway department
Yeah.
superintendent, yeah,
I would
Dave.
encourage that.
Yep.
So how long are those trucks?
Well, 53 and
Okay.
20,
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to come in probably up to the pavilion before they even start to swing around to where the logs are.
what they typically do is they'll come in off of Kendall onto your driveway into the park. And then they'll go right into the field and do their turnaround and point themselves on the way out.
On the
Yeah.
way out, yeah.
Before they get loaded.
Yep.
Then they get loaded and then just a straight shot right out of there. For the reasons you
Yeah.
are probably concerned about. It's very hard to maneuver a truck when it's got 80,000 pounds on it.
Yeah.
So, you turn them around, you point them in the right direction, and you'll load them.
My nephew works for Wagner Wood. So
Well, then
he does-
you've seen the dance.
I've seen the,
I think there's probably $30,000 to $40,000.
That was my next question.
Depends on how well they treat the dead wood in terms of thinning it.
now, is this just the one section? Is there more sections later on that we can do?
Yeah. I thought that the kind of message I was getting from you folks was that, dead wood just doesn't get any better.
No, yeah, I realize you only.
And it's
got stuff
dangerous.
here.
It's
Yep.
already falling down.
Yep.
There's already stuff across the trails.
Yeah.
So, let's clean up the critical path piece first, and then we have options. The hemlock out there surprisingly doesn't, I didn't see a lot of evidence of the woolly adelgid on the leaves, but you've got
That's a little aphid on the
yeah,
back.
a little aphid that's on the underside of the needles of the hemlock branches, but it's in there.
Yeah, don't tell me.
It's definitely in there.
Can I ask another question real quick? Would the removal or the clear cutting of all this timber, when it rains, would it cause rutting? Because normally trees would help keep the rain back. Because we have other areas of the park where we have rutting because of the rain that's coming up down those trails.
Erosion, yeah.
Okay.
You've hit on something that's really important, down the trails. The reason why I think that you see erosion on the trails is because there's no vegetation and it's compacted soil on the trails for foot traffic, horse traffic, etc. That creates a good environment for erosion. And so the trail that I've seen, this section I've worked in, the trail's fairly intact. I don't really see any evidence of erosion. I haven't seen any. You have water bars. You have put in some mitigation there. I mean, it's dated, but it's there, and it's working. That's why I want to stay off the trails. When these people build a skid trail, what they do is they have a machine called a feller buncher that cuts the tree down, delimbs it, separates the products that they want, and then they take the branches that are large enough and put them right in front of themselves, and then drive over them, and so on, and so on, and so on.
Oh.
So they're mashing down a mat, if you will, of branches that are twisted in different directions. So
So they're protecting the ground underneath.
indeed, it's
That's
kind of the blessing of this mechanized system, because you really have a hard time doing that with a skidder where you go out with a chainsaw, cut the tree down, take the limbs off. You're not going to go dragging those limbs and put them in front of a skidder and start moving again. But when you've got a machine that can just pick it up and put it there, they'd rather do that. It saves on, especially if they're in a stony area, it saves on the steel, on the tracks, and the tires, if they're they're wheeled. And if they run late into the season, or if the season changes, or if we get one of these warm spells, they're sitting on top of the ground. They're not in the ground. They're not making ruts. So, and then that doesn't get taken away. That gets left right there, and it rots in place. So if we come into a spot that gets muddy, they put some tops in there. If it gets muddy, they put some more tops in it. And they just mash tops until they're sitting up on top again. That stays there. It's organic matter. It rots in place. It's an amendment to the soil. And you don't get erosion.
I kind of want to see the process. Does anybody else have any more questions?
I don't know.
Do you have any more questions?
No, I'm good.
I mean, I think you've gotten all my questions, Mr. Edwards.
Then, could I be allowed to ask a question?
Do you have a question, George?
First off, my compliments on the work that you've already done.
Thanks.
George, can you do me a favor? Can you just identify yourself?
Oh, sure. My name is George Randall. I live at 52 Taylor. My question is, many years ago, there was identified up in that area, I think where you're talking about cutting, is a large great oak. Did you happen to come across that?
You know, I don't think I did. And one of the things that would help us answer that question is that I have a summary of every tree that was marked by diameter. And the word great is a generalized term, but you know, if I look through this tally, I don't have a single tree over 27 inches in diameter in red oak. And so it would have to be pretty large. It must be already down. It must be gone.
I don't know. I've been up there and walked the trails and stuff looking for it, but I can't find it.
I see a 28-inch black oak, 27-inch red. I see some big, well, I take it back. There's a 31-inch red oak in there. There's some 30-inch oak in there, but that's large. That's not small. But when I hear my vision of a great oak is something that was there early, probably the cows were underneath it back in the day, and it tends to be like branches very low, nothing I'm interested in from a timber perspective because it's too gnarly. And I didn't really see one like that, and if I did, I can tell you I wouldn't have marked it.
Okay, thank you.
It's kind of it's a lost leader, if you will. It's more work to put it down on the ground than it is to get the value of it.
Okay.
Good. Good question, George. No, I'm curious. I'll have to go hiking.
I know, I want to go see.
It may not be in that section.
Well, that could very well be possible. Thank you for letting me ask that.
You're welcome.
There's a large section of hemlock that has some big oak in it that I haven't gotten into, so might be in there.
How soon would you want this contract signed?
That was my question.
Well, the sooner I can submit it, the sooner it gets approved, and then the sooner I can put the bid documents together and have you review them, and then put it out there and set a date. So, you know, it'd be nice to get it all wrapped up into a neat little package, so whomever does get to be the successful bidder puts it on their dance card and knows when they can come in. So, you know, we've got plenty of time, but that's a dangerous.
Yeah. But the same ways, you know, we're thinking of doing a winter, other people are thinking
Other
the same
people
thing.
probably are too.
Exactly.
Can I ask one more question, Mr. Edwards? So in the desired future conditions section, you say the stand will be fully regenerated in 5 years. What does fully regenerated mean? Is it a certain height? Is it a
No,
certain
it's
fullness?
a certain density of seedlings and saplings.
Okay.
So you already have seedlings and saplings there. When there was plenty of acorns in the ground when I was there. And this process those machines are like planting tools. They roll over the ground and they're pushing acorns and other seeds. There's a seed bank in the soil it's got thousands and thousands of seeds in it. So as those machines are jolting their way through the woods, they're pushing in more seed. So we have advanced regeneration now, and we'll have more from the activity itself. And once we release that, I think you'll enjoy, I think the person that uses that trail will enjoy the fact that they've got a vista now that they never had before by taking off this overstory.
Okay. Gentlemen, are you comfortable taking a vote on signing this tonight so we can get this process started?
I am.
Are you comfortable?
Don't we have to add a few things to gravel?
That would go into the bid document.
That's on the bid document.
Which he can't start until we
Till we sign.
decide
Yeah,
on
I'm
this.
okay then.
So you guys don't have any other questions or concerns?
No.
I don't know.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we sign the forest cutting plan.
I'll second Rick's motion.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
And you said you needed a hard signature? Can I borrow your pen, Rick?
Pardon me, I'm
Eh.
I'll have you sign a second copy afterwards for that.
Sure thing. I just didn't want to sign it in red ink. All right, so this has been signed.
I think all we need is the signature page that you said.
Just the signature page?
And I think he has the rest of the contract
I
already.
do.
Oh, well, then you just need the
Oh, yeah,
signature
everybody
page.
has plenty of copies now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
submit this to the state probably tomorrow.
Perfect, thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you for all the information you've given us.
Well, that's part of what I do.
Yes, but you made it, you know, forest cutting for dummies, which I appreciated.
Good night.
Good night. All right, we have one citizen's participation. Come on up, Mr. Randall.
I'll just stand right here if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
My question was, I received a call this afternoon from the chairman of the Church of Christ Dino Fest, and he was under the impression that he received a notice about having to send in a $75 check for a permit fee for that, and I was under the impression that for the nonprofits, that was, the fees were sort of waived.
Can I answer that one?
Yes.
Number one, you request that the fees be waived, okay?
Do you need that in writing, Chris?
Yes, we do.
Sure.
What we do is and I have spoken to Mr. Doucette
Yeah.
regarding this, is he submits a check. We will not deposit the check, because normally the board does waive the fees. However, it is up to the board to waive, and not Mr. Doucette to come in and say, it's free,
Okay,
okay?
gotcha.
And he's gotten very belligerent in our office regarding that,
We're not going to have that.
and that's the issue. And that's why I've stuck my feet in the mud, like you would in your former profession, okay?
Gotcha.
Everybody files a check, and I told them we would not cash it, but we would return it once the board officially waived the fee,
Perfect. Thank you very much.
okay?
Enjoy to say, well, for your information and everybody else's, really, this board has discussed several meetings ago
Yep.
to formalize that, where it's actually a form that's filled out and a request for
The waiver.
the waiver and the reason why, so.
As you know, I haven't been here for a couple of meetings, and
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not privy to that, if you will.
No, I didn't bring it up, just, that was more of a FYI, that's all.
But we'll make sure that there's, whatever's handled here is in a professional manner.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
just a written quick note, 3
Yep.
lines.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Martin, you're on. Dufresne Rental.
Dufresne Rentals. Okay. The first one is for May 7th, 2022, arriving 7 a.m., departing 5 p.m. Number of people is 50, liquor, no. It is a birthday party. Area requested is the parking lot area, open field, wooded areas on either side of the open field, and the pavilion. second one is for May 15th, 2022, arriving 12 p.m., departing 6 p.m., liquor, no, number of people 100. It's a family gathering. Area requested, parking lot area, open field, wooded areas on either side of the open field, and the pavilion. And then we have Friends of the Granby Elderly, Inc. First date is June 21st, 2022, arriving 4 p.m., departing 6 p.m., liquor, no, maximum number of people, 300. This is their first summer concert in the gazebo and lawn area. The second summer concert will be on July 14th, 2022, arriving 4 p.m., departing 8 p.m. Third summer concert is on August 16th, 2022, arriving 4 p.m., departing 8 p.m. And the last and the last one is a senior picnic on September 7th, 2022, arriving 9 a.m., departing 2 p.m. Liquor, no, maximum number of people, 125, and it is to be held in the pavilion. You got all those dates, sure?
Thank you.
Apparently write faster than I do, George. I'm still writing.
I have to tell you that I really enjoy those concerts.
Do you?
Yes.
All right. What do we have for correspondence?
Correspondence is, first item is we received our franchise fees from Comcast. It totaled $813 this year. We also have a notice from the planning board that they are going to be holding a zoning bylaw amendment hearing. They want to hold those the same night as or have them discussed the same night as our annual town meeting. However, I believe that we should be holding those probably in June, not at our May town meeting, because we are planning on going back inside at 7 p.m. And with all the regular stuff that we have on the agenda, I think it would make the meeting a little bit too long. I've already been in discussions with the moderator about it, and she is in agreement. And we are hopeful that maybe we can also, at that same night, is address the general bylaw changes that were brought forth at the annual town meeting, I think a year ago, and was postponed. And I think we're ready to bring those forward again. Also, as a side note, for the annual town meeting in May, I believe it's May 9th, the second Tuesday or second Monday in May, we are planning on renting those electronic voting clickers to try them out and see how well they work. And then at that point in time, decide whether we want to purchase or maybe just continue to lease them for additional town meetings.
Okay.
The only because the concern is with the way technology changes at such a rapid pace, we wouldn't want to buy a clicker or a set of clickers and then find out they're outdated because something new came along. So that's what we've been looking at instead.
That's fair.
Because I believe if we purchase, it's going to be about $9,000, or a little like $9,000 and change. And to rent them is about $1,000 at this point in time. So, the number of town meetings that we have, we feel that maybe it'd be better to
Just to keep renting.
keep renting.
Right, and like I said, as technology changes, and it will, because if you think about it, if it's $9,000, it would take us at least 5 years to get to that point.
Yes.
At $1,000 a meeting to a year. And chances are in 5 years, the technology is going to probably be a little more advanced than it was. And at what point do you say, okay, we're going to buy a new system or, retrofit our system? So I think
If we're able
that's
to
it.
rent, I
And
think that's
as you're renting it too, there's not a worry from our part that something breaks,
Right.
stuff like that, so. Yeah.
Okay. Then also we received more documentation regarding the ongoing bankruptcy proceedings for Community Eco Power, which is a place that we bring our municipal solid waste to be incinerated. So there is still an ongoing bankruptcy proceeding. And that's pretty much it for the correspondence.
All right, so now we're on to departmental reports. Did everybody get a chance to read them?
Good.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve and sign the, well, approve the, accept the department report, excuse me.
Are they here?
Yep.
It's something I wanted to note in one of them. I thought it was actually the police department.
Which week?
I don't know in a second. I think it was the first week.
Several weeks of
I know, I messed us up, I'm sorry. We had 3 instead of 2.
So I just, so we always think as Granby as a small town, right? A small police department. So when I read this is from the chief, Kevin O'Grady, so this is March 14th. The police department had 182 calls. That just strikes me, it's a lot of calls of service for 1 week. You know, that for a small police department. So I felt that was interesting, because when I saw the week after, I think
It
it
did seem
was like 120 like the week
higher
after. It
than-
just seemed
yeah.
like it's a lot of additional calls, and that seemed like it's kind of, you know, I just thought that was interesting. It seems like, I don't know, maybe it's not, but it seems like it's a lot of calls, when the week before was like 123, 124, something like that,
It
so.
seemed like there was a spike in
Yeah,
them.
so.
snowstorms, accidents.
Yeah, there was a couple of
Yeah,
accidents.
so it just shows that you know, how busy the police department can be.
Department really is.
Yep,
They're moving.
yep.
All right, so is there a second to his motion?
I will second his motion.
Is there any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Martin, warrants?
Okay, we have 4 warrants. Warrant number 53, dated 2/25/2022, the amount of $398,626.84. That is a bill paying warrant. Warrant number 54, dated March 4th, 2022, for $457,168.90. That is a payroll warrant. Warrant number 55, dated March 4th, 2022, in the amount of $177,207.61. That is the maintenance warrant that goes along with the payroll warrant. And warrant number 56, dated March 11th, 2022, in the amount of $392,427.63. And that is a bill paying warrant.
Can I just say we pay too many bills?
Chris, I do need to tell you something, though. When you were off, Kathy was here reading it, and I said to Kathy, it seems like it sounds so much more, the amount of money was so much more when she was reading it than when you read it.
Need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'd like a motion that we approve and sign maintenance warrant number 53, number 54, 55, and number 56.
Is there a second?
I'll second Rick's motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll switch over to a blue pen.
You can send me your red.
No, I would sign it in purple, not in red.
Well,
I don't have
you
any.
told me I would have brought down my purple one.
My purple died finally, so I need a new one.
So told me I would have brought down. But I carry one in my satchel too.
You'll have to remember that for next week. All right, so our common vics.
Okay, we have common vic number 22-26 for May's Pizzeria, 56 West State Street, Granby, Mass. 01033. Fee $25. Expires December 31st, 2022.
Is that Little
That's the
Italy?
one replacing Little Italy
Okay.
Pizza. Yes.
I did meet the owner there, Chris.
Huh?
He
I
seems
met
very
the owner,
nice.
Chris.
Did you?
Yeah, for my life, I can't remember his last name, but nice gentleman, excited to do business in Granby. Looking forward to meeting the people. He's really excited about it.
I'm excited to try the pizza.
Mr. Palooza.
Palooza. That's why I didn't remember.
We have common victualler license number 22-27, Pioneer Valley Chapter 8 of NAFCA, fee $25. This is for 104 West State Street, expires December 31st, 2022.
Is that the camping club?
That's the camping club.
Okay. Just those two?
Just those two.
Alrighty.
Motion?
Mm-hmm.
Make a motion that we approve and sign common vic license 22-26 and 22-27, both expired on 12/31/22.
Is there a second?
Yep. I'll second Rick's motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Entertainment.
Entertainment license number 22-06, fee $50 for the Pioneer Valley Chapter 8 Camping Club, 104 West State Street, Granby, Mass. License is granted for entertainment license to provide entertainment to customers as follows. Live entertainment consisting of a DJ or small bands, inside building for member events only, and live entertainment on the patio behind main building between 12 p.m. and 10 p.m. only, located at 104 West State Street, Granby, Mass. Expires December 31st, 2022.
Is that the only one?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion we approve and sign entertainment license number 22-06, expiring on 12/31.
I'll second Rick's motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Craft fair.
Craft fair. This is number 22-01, requesting the fee be waived for the Granby Preservation Society, 250 State Street, Granby, Mass. And an outdoor craft fair permit on May 14th, 2022. This license is granted in conformity with the statutes and ordinances related thereto and expires at 3:01 p.m. on the final day of the craft fair, unless sooner suspended or revoked.
Any motion?
Yes, please.
I make a motion that we approve, sign craft fair permit 22-01 with the fee waived, expiring at 3:01 on the final day of the craft fair.
I'll second Rick's motion.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And just so the board knows, these permits will not be issued out because we're waiting for workers' compensation paperwork for each one of those. Once those are received is when we will issue those out.
Okay.
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 Class 2.
Class 2, number 2-0002, fee $50. This is a Class 2 used car dealer's license, Class 2, issued to AJ Inc., doing business as AJ's Auto Body, 39 West State Street, Granby, Mass. It is a metal Butler building on Route 202, some frontage for placement of cars for resale, storage in rear of building for non-repaired cars. Restrictions: no more than 6 used motor vehicles for sale at one time. Vehicles with major damage waiting to be repaired must be stored out of sight or inside of the building, and reconfigure up to 24 spaces for non-employees to include for autos under repair and for sale with maximum 5 spaces on the southerly side of the property. This license expires January 1, 2023. And as a side note, even though the board is signing this tonight, hopefully, that it will not be issued until after the 20-day waiting period from the planning board's decision.
That seems fair.
You said there was 5 spaces
That's what.
for sale?
On the southerly side of the property. And we said, originally said no more than 6 used motor vehicles for
Right.
sale.
So is it 6 or is it 5?
Apparently the planning board didn't look at those. So which one would you rather have? We're meeting next week, so if you want, you want the board to make it 5?
I mean, I don't know, I mean, it was just a number, I'm okay with 6, but if they weren't, the reason they went from 6 to 5,
I
then
guess we need to make sure.
I want to know they're,
In agreement with the planning
Yeah.
board.
Maybe that's all he identified on the site plan for all I know,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because he had redrawn, I
I
believe.
did see the site plan, but I can't remember what it looked like. I mean, how many spaces are on it, but I'm just curious, it said 6 used vehicles with the 5 for sale. It sounds like
Well, we
it's,
can hold this till next week and get that information.
yeah, because I'd like to have it,
That's what
I'd like to have it right for
Okay.
them, for AJ's, yeah.
All right, I'll check with Kathy and see
Yep.
if she has stuff from the planning board.
Okay.
So we can address it at our meeting on next Monday night.
All right.
Perfect. Alrighty.
And before I get into the ARPA and the letter for the return of deposit, there was a couple other things I wanted to talk to the board about. 2 meetings ago, we had talked about potentially, a request was made to change the rates for our BLS rate, ALS 1, ALS 2 rate that we charge for ambulance calls. And I think the board wanted to know what other communities were doing. If you look at the documents I gave you, there was an ambulance fee survey along with the proposed, the 2022 rate change form. I don't know if the board wanted to consider increasing the rate or leaving it the same. I know it's kind of hard to read, but the average rate for all these towns that were surveyed, the average rate for the BLS rate is $1,021.74. The average for ALS 1 is $1,617.78. And the average for an ALS 2 is $2,500.21. And the average mileage is 29.21.
What is the difference between an ALS 1 and an ALS 2?
I have no clue.
Jean, do you know that?
More advanced life support.
Are we an ALS 1 or an ALS 2?
Any call can be one or the other.
It just depends, okay. So
Level.
it's level of service that's
Some of the
given.
moderate started at an ALS.
Okay. So if I'm reading this correctly, Chris, we're already over the average in all of these.
Yes.
Okay. Our mutual aid areas, South Hadley, Belchertown, Ludlow. Is there any others? Amherst does mutual aid for us? Okay, and they're not on here?
Gene, is mutual aid just the towns that abut us, directly abut us? Or do we go beyond that?
Could go beyond, and if there was nothing available, you have to keep calling until you get somebody who can respond. So everybody has to be on the same area. You could get accidental oil coming over the bridge now.
Okay.
Are you doing the math?
Yeah. Some of the math.
Will you give me the math when you're done? So should I do it
No, I'm
myself?
what I'm curious of looking at is that the surrounding towns, so, our current rate is 28,971 for level 2 emergency services.
Yeah. So that's below Belchertown, but it's above Ludlow's, and it's below South Hadley's, but
Well-
not by much.
Well, we're above. Out of the 20 towns that are listed here, we're above 15 of them.
Yeah, so our rates are, I don't necessarily know that we need to raise them.
I'm just trying, that's just, well, look at all of them, this, maybe we can do.
That's why I was just looking at our mutual aids.
Basic life.
That's a question. Mutual aid, who bills out? Do we bill out, or does the responding town bill the person, or do they bill the town and the town then bills the person?
Transporting unit bills.
Okay, so if I went by Ludlow, Ludlow would bill me?
Yeah.
Okay,
You just lose the call.
okay. Thank you.
Can I throw one caveat into what you're looking at?
Sure.
Why don't you come forward, Lee?
I just gotta say one thing about it. I know when that was created in the chief of Ludlow Fire, Jeff LaVoy, created that because he wanted to look into raising his rates. So if you look at somebody like a Belchertown on that, they've already raised their rates, or somebody like Ludlow wants to raise their rates but hasn't, and that's what the figures you're looking at.
Okay.
So a lot of those people are looking to raise their rates to where they can go, but haven't done so yet.
on this form, what are we looking at? The average bundles, what the fees there we want to raise it up to?
Well, if we go by the averages, we're already over the average rates.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing.
I mean, I'm looking at our surrounding towns, which is why
If you look at.
I had asked for.
If you look at the first page, Jim,
Mm-hmm,
for Comstar,
yep,
see Comstar top 50,
yep.
we're below.
Yes, they're top 50. Who are their top 50?
It's statewide.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't necessarily know that that is pertinent to ours. If their top 50 is out in the eastern part of the state, that's a big difference.
Well, out of these 20, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 14 of them are filled by Comstar.
Correct. But I guess what I'm saying is if Comstar's top 50 is handling the eastern, the Boston area, things like that,
So there's statewide.
well, I understand they're statewide, but I'm saying if their top 50 is out on that side, that's an income adjustment that we don't have out here for the most part. Yes, Jean?
Rates are state rates that are insurance rates for the state. They don't discriminate between east, west, north, south, or anything. Those are state reimbursement rates that are all state.
Right, no, but what towns charge or not. So if this is an average of Comstar's top 50, whatever their towns are that are charging, that's not state regulated. If it was, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Well, if you want, you can postpone this to the next meeting, and I can try and get all of Comstar to see what their top 50 towns are. If that's what you look at.
I would like that information. I don't know about you two.
Well, I'm looking at this, and these are our surrounding towns around us, pretty much. Some a little further than others. For basic life, we're above 16 of these towns out of 20. The level 1 emergency service, we are 15 above the 20 towns listed. And then for level 2, ASL level 2, we are 15 above the 20. So, and some of them, you know, were $700 more. And some were just close with them. But it is noted, though, you know, South Hadley is more than us. East Long Meadow, Belchertown.
Belchertown's is significant.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, even looking at.
Belchertown already raised their rates. The rest of them haven't yet.
Well,
How do you know that? Is it missing that somewhere? Does it say that somewhere?
these rates were all in effective 2020 except for Wilbraham, which is 2021. That's this column right here. Rates in
Oh,
effect.
effect.
So Belchertown has been charging those rates since 2018.
But I take a look at something like South Hadley, who's our neighbor.
They
I
haven't
mean-
touched them since 2015.
Oh, but again, we're within, you know, $100 for each one.
Mhm.
Even though that they're more than us, we're still within $100. What was our rates last?
2015?
2015? 2018?
Sorry. Two
Right
in
here,
2018. I was reading Greenfield. So it looks like East Long Meadow is the most recent rate change. And they're literally within $100 of us.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really see a need to do it
I'm
right
not in
now. I'd be
favor
glad
of
to take a
it.
look at it again next year.
Okay.
You know, I don't see it right now. Well, just comparing us to surrounding towns.
We're not significantly under.
No.
No, that's fine. It's just that we have to get that form back to ComStar, just so that they know.
So we'll keep the current rates?
Okay.
Is there any, let me ask though, is there any other factors that would play into this that we're not thinking of from, is there a reason why, you know, like Westfield is less than we are? Is there any factors that play into that? It's just what they charge? I mean, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Could be their size, their call volume, could be a lot of things.
Well, most insurance companies don't always pay this fee, right, Gene?
Yeah, it's all, it depends what type of call it is, what they pay. Medicaid, you get very minimal amount, no matter what you charge.
I was just wondering why they're lower. Is there certain things that would play into it that we're not realizing, instead of just the amount being charged? That's all.
We'd have to talk to Westfield, so.
Yeah.
I think we're right in the ballpark of the other budding neighborhoods there.
I mean, I think so. I mean, so for Belchertown,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like I said, we can look at it again for fiscal year
Yeah.
24.
I'm not in favor of making any changes right now. What?
Because you would be 23 to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but they go
Next
into
year for
effect for
2023.
24 or no?
No, we tell them when they go into effect.
Oh, okay.
We make that
All
determination.
right.
If you look at the sheet, a lot of them, they don't go into, some go into effect as of the beginning of fiscal year. and a lot.
So they just do whatever they decide to change the rates,
It's
to change the
whatever.
rates, okay.
All right, did you have anything else before we moved on to old business? Okay.
We had received a letter from the school with the board wish to do the Good Citizen Awards again this year.
Yes, but we had discussed criteria for that.
We discussed having one.
That's what I'm saying, we discussed setting, let me rephrase.
Yes.
I don't remember when it said they needed to know by.
It's in the correspondence.
By Friday, March 25th.
It'll give you much time.
That gives us one meeting.
So, why don't we all kind of think about it? At our next meeting, we can bring back some ideas we think should be
For
part of it.
criteria.
I'm sure a lot will be the same, and I'll just make the criteria. And, you know, we can always improve and change as years go on. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's start somewhere.
Yep.
And then the last topic I have is, gave you a copy of the last ad that we put out for our Director of Senior Services and the job description. I don't know if the board wishes to review it, and then we can discuss it at the next meeting also.
So this is the one that we have used? Yeah, okay.
I'd like to start moving forward on that one to get it permanent.
Yeah, we do need to start moving forward on that.
I'd like for us to give the salary range. It says it's 50,000 plus.
And that's okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
All right,
I'd
so
like to have
we'll,
like a
let's,
range, yeah.
let's tear this apart, we can revisit it next week.
Okay.
Eyelash in my eye.
What's your theory on that, Glenn?
My theory?
Yeah.
So if someone who's applying for it, if you see 50,000 plus, you really don't know what the level's at. So you may be coming thinking, well, is it 50,000 or is it 60,000?
Okay.
So now if you, someone who's applying for it shows the range that, and you can also look at, you know, it could be here to here. That's what the range is, depending on experience and things like that. Or you just, this is your range, you start off here, and what it looks like, you know, 5 years from here, this is what your top salary would be. Something, I don't know. I think it's just to get some type of range, since that is 50 plus.
All right, so we'll each make our notes on that and bring that back next meeting.
Did the personnel board give it a grade level or anything, or they don't do it because it's a management position?
It's a contract position.
Contract position, okay.
We had just included it when we did that, when the personnel board went through and did a compensation study
Yeah.
with Mr. Jacobs, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
Don Jacobs. We included it just so that we could get it rated.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Ready whenever you are.
Those are the topics that I had.
So now we can go into old business?
Yeah.
All righty. Let's talk about ARPA funds.
Just so the board has been asked, what is the actual amount of the award from the town of Granby? $1,880,425. And we've already been paid to date about $330,000.
So we basically have 1.5 left, give or take.
Give or take. Now, as I had mentioned 2 meetings ago, was that under the final rules issued by the treasurer for small communities, instead of having to decide how you're going to break this up into various projects, for lack of a better term, the town could opt to take what they call a $5 million standard deduction, so that you would, for revenue loss. You don't have to prove it, you don't have to do any calculations. You can just take this standard deduction like on your tax, plus $5 million. And we could vote to do that. We notify the treasurer, and we get to take the 1.8 million, 1.9 million, okay? And be able to spend it for any type of government services. There's nothing, there's no strings attached, there's nothing with it. We're just saying, we're declaring, taking the $5 million bottom number as a revenue loss number. And the government will say, okay, we file, based upon that, and they'll accept it. But then we decide how we're going to spend the 1.8 million, whether it be purchasing capital equipment, whether it be doing projects, whether it be applying it towards, I know we keep talking about water.
So it wouldn't need to be COVID related at that point?
No.
Okay.
Any government service, which is a broad definition.
And that was up through the ARPA. The ARPA Act allows that?
Yes, the final rules and regulations, if you want, I can forward them to you. They came out as of April 1st. or
Okay.
they're effective April 1st, but we can use them now because they are in draft form. But those are the things we can do.
And we had town council look at that anyways.
Yes, and town council said the only other item we have to be careful of, if we do a capital expenditure, if it's more than $1 million, there's some limitations to it. The only thing we can't do is use it to pay down our debt. We can't use it to fund OPEB
Right.
or retirement contributions, things of that nature. There's a
But we could
few-
put it into infrastructure, we
We can do
could,
whatever we want with it.
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, the infrastructure was to make both infrastructure, broadband,
But the other issue
employees.
is now with that new bill that was passed, the bipartisan bill about infrastructure, now you can use that for
Right.
infrastructure instead,
right.
okay? So the question is do we want to
And
help
there's,
Comcast in expanding the broadband capabilities in the town of Granby? You know, all I'm saying is that I'm getting a lot of people who are now pushing to these private entities.
Right.
They want the town to go out and apply for these funds so that they can use it to improve their infrastructure.
if we do the standard deduction, that removes all time limits we have to spend
Yes,
it?
because we spent it as of.
Okay, making sure, I just wanted to,
Yes, we've done it as of,
okay.
So residents are calling you about
no, companies.
companies.
Yeah.
All right. I'd like to read I actually need to read that ruling, just so I understand it.
You want the
better.
450-page one or the 40-page?
No, I need the abbreviated version. I don't want to see what else they sandwiched into it, I just want the parts that relate to ARPA.
Okay.
I know how government works.
That's fine, I'm just saying.
Okay. Does anybody else want to read that, or should he just send it to me?
I've read some of it, and our town council looked at it. That's the lawyer, and he finds it to be okay. A lot more knowledge than I
Oh, I
have
still
looking
don't
at it.
understand it.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I'm not
Because it's
sure
written by
if that's-
lawyers.
Yeah.
Well, of course it is, we have to keep them in business somehow. Not that we haven't been doing a good job of
And I
it.
did try and get a hold of our.
I'm guessing
auditor.
Brian read it a few times before he understood it.
Yeah, him and I had about 3 conversations on it, but yeah.
I'll have him on speed dial, it'll be fine.
But I've also checked with our auditor, and I haven't had a chance to get back to him again to see if he knows what other communities have gone with that standard
Mhm.
deduction. So we're still trying to get a hold of him to get a feel for that.
Okay.
Well,
There's-
it sounds like the government, I say the government, but it sounds like they made it that way for people to use that standard deduction, and that's why it came into place. To make it easier for people to,
For smaller communities.
smaller communities to obtain the funds.
When do we have to decide this by? When is our filing date?
I think you have to start doing reporting, I believe, starting July or October, I can't remember which day it is.
Okay.
Well,
So
I'm
it-
still waiting for the final forms to come up and what you have to file on it, so.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we are in compliance time-wise.
Again, it comes down to the fact of you have until, what I think, December 31st of 2024 to commit the funds.
To commit the funding?
And then they have to be fully spent by 2026.
Right. Okay.
It's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but,
It's a lot for us.
yeah.
But the question becomes, in light of the Route 202 project that's going forward, do we want to explore joining MWRA to be able to get water? Or the
Did you look at that?
basis?
Ken?
I went on vacation, I did not look into that.
Okay.
That is on my
can.
list of things to do, actually.
I just, I don't know.
I
I
glanced at
agree.
it a little bit.
But there's one thing I'd love to see us spend some money on and figure out what we're doing with, is West Street School.
I'm agreeing with
It's
you.
been sitting there now for, how many years?
Oh, I've been moving.
I mean, I'd like
forward.
to figure out what we're doing with that, and we have the availability and the funds to do it.
I'd like to see us
It's
all
just
under
sad.
I
Yeah, we need to do
have
something with that
been in touch
building.
with DEP regarding the school.
Oh, did they respond to you?
I finally got a response back, and they are gonna send me the sanitary survey, the last sanitary survey that was done on the building, and in it is what they identified as items that needed to be taken care of in order
Okay.
to move forward. And they are also gonna send me the process to reactivate the public water supply.
Oh, okay.
Because when the school moved out, it became an inactive public water supply. Okay,
So that means well hasn't been tested,
correct.
and we'd have to go back to that.
And she did identify to me that before the school became inactive, the school was doing chlorination of the water. And so therefore, we would have to at least start chlorinating it. But I have been doing a little bit on it, just so you know.
Did they indicate how long it would take for them to get you that information?
I can ask them, or check back with the lady again.
Okay.
She happened to call me on Friday.
Well, we can give them a week or so, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, okay.
If we don't hear anything by next Monday, we can follow up.
And I've also already been in touch with an engineering company to see if we have to do any permitting with DEP. This company does do a lot of water permitting with
Okay,
DEP, so
okay.
I've already lined up an engineering company to start assisting.
My big question is that, oil tank in the ground.
The oil tank, we have a $114,000 article for removal of said oil.
I'm afraid it's gonna disintegrate when
We don't know that.
when it hits the
We
air.
don't know that.
But I just mean things like that, it's nice to have this money to pay things that actually are gonna help the town, that we
Yes.
wouldn't have to take out of our
Right.
regular operating funds, you know?
I think the big one would be the asbestos remediation. It's gonna cost us a bundle.
Well,
Encapsulate
it all
it.
depends if you're encapsulating or having to remove it.
Why
And
remove
again-
it if we can
and
encapsulate it?
Again, that'll be a discussion with
Yeah.
DEP.
Yeah.
regarding that. So, you know, and DEP is willing to come and meet with town folk to be able to move forward with that project.
Okay, well, let's get
I
that
don't know what's up in the
information.
ceiling though, Jen, on that. It's
Well,
a
again,
problem.
they'll, once we get
File,
that
yes.
information from DEP, that'll have,
It's not up in the ceiling, it's the glue that
Liver tiles.
is on the ceiling tiles.
Okay.
It's asbestos containing
Yep.
glue.
just don't like the walls.
And the
to
only
be
reason
fine.
I know that is because when we replaced the roof back in 2011, and we had put some more supports for the roof,
Yep.
when they took down the tiles, we had to go and do a remediation because the glue contained asbestos.
Got it. 60s.
And the only other concern would be, if anything, would
Oh, that's
be
just
maybe
the
caulking
cutting.
material in the windows, because a lot of times the caulk contains asbestos.
Okay. So we'll wait on DEP for that information.
So what do you want me to do what do we want to do with the ARPA funds? Do we want to?
Jen's gonna read the 42-page report.
Oh, okay.
480.
Do you want me to send it to you again, or do you have it?
I have it still.
Okay. I think I sent it to all.
You sent to all of us, because
Yep.
you asked me the same question, if I
Okay.
wanted this short version or long version. I opted the short version as well.
Okay, but I didn't know if you want me to print it out for you, because,
No, I said I read through some of it, but again, if the town council's read it and is okay with it, again, that's, as you said, to have a lawyer look at it and is okay with it, that's pretty much who wrote it, so.
great.
So we will make our decision next week.
Okay.
Sound good, guys? That
And
goes
then
to,
the last topic, I was asked to draft a letter to the businesses who had forward us a deposit for potentially being able to connect to our water main project. I don't know if the board has any concerns with the letter or want amendments to it or anything like that.
The only change that I would make would be that second to last paragraph where it says, in light of his answers. I would actually find a way to, I would like to find a way to add that the answer was the increase in cost that we were not expecting. That was a significant increase based on when we started this project. That's my only, I mean, because his answers is very vague. We don't know what his, well, we know.
There were multiple answers.
There were, but I think, well, for me, the biggest one was the cost. The cost versus the population served. I could handle it when it was one, I was not comfortable with it being the second.
I see that, Jen.
There should be one right in the back.
I just forgot how to spell my name.
Were you made it?
No, I spelled Jennifer, Jennifir. Okay. This meeting's gotta come to an end soon, because I'm getting tired, apparently.
Believe me, I struggled with this letter, writing it.
It's a difficult one to write.
I would just add at the end, if anybody has any questions, they can reach out to yourself or the board.
There's another paragraph.
No, do another paragraph, you can put in the last paragraph. I don't know, I'd actually take out the board is still hopeful to be able to address this issue again at a later date.
Well, aren't you still hopeful they can address it over there?
Listen to South Ave, I don't know how we would.
Well, if we join the MWRA, we are able to. That's the difference.
Would that be able to come down this way and then connect into?
Well, what we do is put, the suggestion has been, is because Dufresne Park is the high spot in Granby, we join the aqueduct.
No, I know we put a tower.
Pump to the tower, and then from the tower, you distribute it throughout town.
But we'd have a dead end down here too, right?
Don't know. We don't know.
Will we need more than one tower, you think?
Potentially, I don't know, I'm just saying. But that was a suggestion at one point, was that we use gravity feed from the tower to start, because if I remember right, at that town meeting, there was a lot of people on Kendall Street and around Dufresne Park that were experiencing water issues. And they were the ones who were more in favor of moving forward with the project, not realizing it was only going to serve this section of town and never make it up to.
So we couldn't get it up past the hill.
Can't get it past Amherst Street.
Right.
That's all, it's just,
What was the reason again we couldn't get past Amherst?
Gravity, because
no, because they have to
Pressure
maintain
one?
a minimum
You
of
can't get
20
it up.
pounds of
PSI?
water pressure, PSI, okay? When you get to Amherst Street, you're approaching the top of their tanks in South Hadley, and they can't guarantee giving you 20 pounds of pressure.
If we had put a pumping station in, we could
That's what I
have,
was just
correct?
thinking, but-
Don't know, that I don't.
Right,
Increase the
exactly.
pressure.
I mean, it's not, cost-wise, it's not effective for this population.
this will just get them the water. They're still gonna tie in each household, right?
The 202 project?
For the residents.
Yes, the 202 project was for the
Also,
stubs.
the way you could also help fund it is whatever street you put a water main on, you can do a betterment fee. Because you're improving the property by bringing water, municipal water to it. Just like you did with the sewer when you brought it
Yep.
up through here.
Yep.
There was a betterment fee that was calculated, that was charged to each of the property owners who wanted the construction area.
Well, without knowing what the MWRA criteria is, it's a moot point at this point.
It's,
I'll keep my
I
fingers
just
crossed.
don't
You
want
might
you to
have to
think
call Richie.
we're not going to consider water anymore. That's all I was trying to do with that last sentence.
No, I agree. I do think that, they need to know that
It
we're
may
not
not
just
be-
writing it off entirely. It's just not coming from South Hadley.
It may not be this board, it may be a future board, but it still is a concern for the residents of this community.
Yep, it is. Something we gotta deal with somewhere.
Yep.
The board sometimes doesn't like that. We cut just give it a little.
Just threw a little
Well,
bit
this
of
board
glitter on
member is
there.
always hopeful that we can get the water.
What?
This board member is hopeful that we'll be able to get it done sooner or later.
We'll get it done. Might be 50 years from now, but we'll get it done.
Yeah, and looked into that, so it's a big,
It's a huge project.
yeah, you might need to call the US.
I think a better option is to look at the sewer system in the future.
I think we should just explore both. If we're going to tear up the roads, we might as well get them both done at the same time. We're laying pipe. If we lay pipe, let me
Yeah,
rephrase
well, it's
that.
very expensive to do both. I think, very expensive. But I think that's something to consider, because that's, the concern is that,
Can the
The wells,
board
yeah.
just look at this and advise me how you want me to?
yeah, I made some notes on the,
He did.
on the thing.
Glenn changed your last sentence to, "The board is exploring other options to address this issue in the future," which is fair and accurate.
Right.
So we'll give you that copy.
Okay, that's fine. Like I said, I struggle with it. I really did struggle with this one.
No, it's fine.
And I would add in at the end there too, if they have any questions, because people may
Yeah, if you have any
want to.
questions,
okay.
please contact the board.
He's got that.
Board members or, I don't know.
Yep. All right.
All right, is
All
there
right.
anything else? Anybody have anything else?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Did you ever hear back from the school committee? I emailed back Jen and you, CC'd, they're looking for a date still. So I never heard back, because she was waiting to hear back from the finance committee. And I said-
Finance
There was an
committee had
email.
sent an email out at one point saying it was Mondays or Wednesdays or something like that.
And I did say if that date came up before our meeting, that would let us know, so we could, I think they switched hers to like the 18th, so I said if they came up with a date, I explained that Jen was on vacation, I was actually gone away the week before Jen.
Right, the date that I had gotten from the finance committee was March 9th. Well, Rick was already going to Pathfinder.
Right,
Jen was already gone, that was only going to leave you.
right.
So,
So that date didn't work, and I know, I said,
Let's see.
yeah,
what
you did
email.
send an email.
right, it was just if they had a date before our meeting tonight to get back to us, so we could discuss it.
I've never heard, I didn't.
I neither, because I know they're looking to try to get something before, is it the 28th, maybe?
I'm
They
looking
wanted
it
before
up.
the 14th originally.
Originally, that's what it was, but then they extended it out.
The March 28th.
March
I saw
28th.
an email on Tuesday.
Was that sent to John too, do you remember? email?
That went to John, Glenn, Rick, Adam, you, and Stephen Sullivan.
Okay, so,
Yeah, I think that's the one I got to. Yeah, I remember that.
And she says that, when was that? What date was Tuesday? Does anybody know the answer to that question?
which Tuesday?
Last Tuesday.
The 8th.
The 8th? All right, so. I don't know. I haven't heard, I emailed Jen, but I haven't heard back. I emailed her that I would be back from vacation this past Friday, and that we have a meeting today, but that I could do any other day, and that we would check with you two.
I just can't do the 16th this week, if it's this week.
So, calendar. All right. So next Monday, we have select board.
And I can't do the 30th, I already have another meeting that night.
Well, it needs to be before the 28th, is what they're asking. And you said finance committee was what days? Do you remember?
I think he had said Monday and Wednesdays, I thought he said.
23rd work for us? It's a Wednesday, if that works for the finance committee.
27th?
The 23rd is good for me.
Oh, you said the 23rd?
23rd, not the Saturday.
Where?
No, that's what, next
It's a Wednesday.
next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday, yeah. So
Okay.
we'd have our meeting Monday and then that meeting
Okay.
Wednesday if it works for school committee and finance committee.
I'm fine with it.
Does that 23rd work for you?
Yep.
Do you want to respond? Reach out to Jen about the 23rd? That works for us if it works for everybody?
Well, I gotta find out if it works for John, too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It works for this board. So if it works for the other two, then,
All right.
okay. Was there anything else before we enter into executive? Rick, anything?
No.
Glenn, anything else?
No.
All right, in that case, I move that we go into executive session under Mass General Law 30A 21A2 to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel.
Good night.
Take care,
Bye,
George.
George. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All righty, Silva, aye.